The most anticipated package I've received in a long time finally showed up today. While I've been waiting quite a while for it to be shipped over from the Netherlands, I've actually been waiting many years for this. Inside this box contains the rarest piece of vintage computer history that I own. Although not particularly sought after, it's taken me a very long time to find. In this box is a memory card. While the actual chips themselves aren't impossible to find, mainly a bunch of 74 series logic and only a couple of RAM chips, the existence of a PAL chip, nonetheless the programming of the PAL chip, as well as the board layout, has remained a mystery for most of my life. My very first computer was called a Headstart Explorer. It was a bit of an obscure computer, really a budget model. It offered a lot of features for the price, but in 1989, when my computer was originally bought new, the 8088 CPU was considered weak and very dated compared to the 386, which was prevalent at the time. In all the promotional material the company created, brochures, the box the computer itself came in, even VHS tapes featuring Leonard Nimoy himself promoting the computer and reviewing its features, there was always a reference to a 256 kilobyte memory expansion board. It was always depicted as a generic rectangle with the words memory pack, spelled P-A-K. They didn't even have an actual image to show of the board. They literally just drew a rectangle and wrote memory pack on it. The solder mask on the actual board refers to it as a memory pack spelled P-A-C-K. It seems the company itself wasn't even too sure how they wanted to spin it. Until now, I haven't been able to find even an image of this board on the internet. Information is very sparse. I imagine that perhaps they had the intention of coming out with a memory expansion board, but never actually produced it, perhaps due to slow sales of the computer. So when I saw the corner of this board sticking out of a photo of a Headstart Explorer for sale, I had to contact them immediately. I'd like to make a special shout out to vintagecomputershop.com or Recompute33 if you want to look him up on eBay. He did a very nice job of packing this memory card up to ensure that it arrived in one piece, and I really appreciate the little swag pack that he threw in the bag. Thank you very much. Shipping the entire computer overseas would be risky and very costly. Seeing as I already owned a couple of these computers, I decided to ask him to send only the memory board. And here it is. The base computer contains 512 kilobytes of RAM on board. What made this computer innovative was its highly integrated design. They managed to integrate all the components of a fully functional PC onto a single board. While this is common today, this wasn't a small feat back in the 80s. CGA graphics, XT IDE hard drive controller, floppy controller, bus mouse controller. There's a lot of devices crammed onto a single motherboard. As a result of that integrated design, the computer only has one single 8-bit ISA slot that, by the way, is also limited in length. Many games require 640K of RAM to run, just slightly over the 512K built-in. Says the computer doesn't actually have any RAM slots. The only way to add memory to the computer is either through this proprietary RAM slot that resembles an ISA slot but a bit shorter, or to use the ISA slot to put in a PC XT memory board upgrade. Adding a memory card to the ISA slot precludes its use for anything else though, such as a sound card or an IDE to compact flash adapter, which would be very useful today. With this memory card, the computer will have enough RAM to greatly expand the range of games that it can play. Although the card has 256K of RAM, I'm curious to see whether the additional 128K of RAM over the 640K boundary will be recognized and usable. While the board appears to be simple, containing just a couple of memory chips and a bunch of 74 series logic, there's also a PAL, or Programmable Array Logic chip, so the board is much more sophisticated than I had imagined. I'd imagine that it would simply contain a bank of RAM and maybe some addressing chips and connect right into the memory bus with the onboard RAM. Out of all of these chips, The actual memory itself is comprised of just two chips. They're Hyundai HY51C 4256S-10. These are 256K x 4-bit CMOS DRAM chips. Features include fast page mode and a data rate of 20 MHz. My plans are to figure out how to clone this board. I'm sure there's a bunch of people out there who would love to be able to add the additional RAM to their Headstart Explorers. Of course there's a bunch. 5 counts as a bunch, right? I'm sure there's at least 5 people out there interested in this computer. Maybe. If you have a Headstart Explorer, please leave a comment down below. I'm looking to make copies of the ROMs. I've noticed what might be some bit rot in a couple of the ones I have. With 2 copies of 2 identical version ROMs, I can do a compare and make available a verified copy of the ROM. There were many versions of the ROM, and no 2 of my Headstarts have the same version. So while I've had the ROMs copied, I still can't do a compare. If you think you could help out with a ROM dump, please reach out in the comments. Thanks.